with today Tesvav Iyar, day following Pesach Sheni. And Pesach Sheni, we have a phenomenal, unique situation, which is that a mitzvah comes about through the demand of the people. And therefore, the Rebbe in his Sicha, I believe it was Tavshin Daled, the Rebbe spoke very strongly about the idea that our requests and our demands and our asking the Eibishter for things can make things happen. And specifically spoke about asking for Moshiach and sort of demanding Moshiach in a way that's obviously proper. And the words teveya, to be teveya, to demand in a way that it's, lamani gara, we need it. So one of the things we always look for is, how do you ask? How do you demand? So if the truth is that if one would go through the davening and look at parts of davening, and on your sheet and on the handout, I wrote out certain parts where the davening literally asks for Moshiach. A whole list of things that the davening asks for Moshiach. But I'd like to divide the davening into two parts. There is asking for Moshiach, and there is experiencing Moshiach. And really it's three parts, because the third part is experiencing Moshiach in the ultimate level of Moshiach, which davening is really about. But to do that, I'm not sure we're going to have the time to get into that, because that requires a level of davening of Chassidus. But let's talk halachic davening, the basic davening, the simple level of davening, which is focused on the meaning of the words in what it was originally set up for, and what we do by davening, and so forth. So if you look at the second, I don't know which is the second, the first, since it's two-sided. So the one that has the nekudas on it, just to look at parts of the davening that we do every day. And I want to go through quickly with some of them, because these are things that we very often, we say, whereas it is very normal that we say things and don't think of what we're saying. But during davening, there are various places where we directly ask Hashem. We want kibbutz golius, we want Moshiach, and so forth. And sometimes we don't even notice that we're saying it. And I'll bring out one of them, which is just so interesting that it's there. So let's start with the first thing on your list over there. Is we say that on the days that we say Tachnun, and after we finish the Parsha Kedah. So there's a whole part over there which is clearly asking Hashem to take us out of Golus, V'shavi kibetzcha mikol amim, and then Nidachacha mitzay hashamayim, and then V'yesem al Arkodshi, V'samachtem Veis Filosi, Elisayim Zuchein L'Ros Al Mizrachi, Kivesi Veis Tevili Karol Cholam. That's literally psukim about Mashiach. Now, I want to mention, in Ramazim, which is all covertly and hiddenly, is a lot about Mashiach. But we're talking about clear requests. Then we go further a little bit, right before Kabbanis. We go through Kabetz and Fitzes Kevach and Ma'avar Kamfis Haaretz, Kirvin Kabbayelam, and then all that again, asking that the world should become a world of Mashiach. In the middle of Kabbanis, Shetrachem aleinu v'simcha achateseinu v'shiyabana beis hamikdash v'meir v'yimeinu. After Kabbanis, shiyabana beis hamikdash v'meir v'yimeinu. Now, I'm going to come back to Kaddish a little later, but just keep it in mind, Kaddish, Kaddish is said, even if we don't say all the Kaddishim, we're going to say many of them during davening, and to know that the main point of Kaddish is Mashiach. That's what Kaddish is. Now we're going to talk about that a little later. Now, throughout Psukkah de Zimra, there's many Psukkim, but there's clear cut, V'hoya Hashem l'melech ha'kol ha'aretz b'eimahu yih Hashem echad Hashem echad, and then Hashem Elokeinu kapseinu min hagoyim lo'edis Hashem k'tzecha. Again, directly asking, take us out of Golus. We finish Psukei de Zimra, V'olu Mashiach B'Artzia, Lish for the Saresav, again, V'hoy Hashem L'melech HaKoloyot, V'yem Ahuyi Hashem Echad Shmei. Then again a Kaddish. Somewhere, again, this I'm not going to go into the whys, but somewhere in the middle of a bracha or Torah, Av Aselim Avtonu, right? In the middle of a bracha or Torah, Ma'er V'hover Leina Bracha V'shalom, V'enu V'yeinu L'sholem Avakam V'sarz. Middle of the talking about Torah and talking about leading up to Kriyas Shema. Take us out of Golos. Okay, Baruch Atah Hashem Gal Yisroel is where we end up, and that's Smichas Geula Tfilah and all, etc. Finish Menesrei again. Shibana Beis Hamikdash. I want to tell you an interesting thing. There's something called Maiden D'Rabbanan, which is, why is it called Maiden D'Rabbanan? Because it is a collection of sentences by various Rabbanan. It's not a one person. No one person made that Maiden. And in the Maiden D'Rabbanan, we say alongside the Chazan, as he says his Maiden, the Kahal says also Maiden. Why is that? It's a discussion on its own. I once heard a very nice word that everything you can be yaitz with the Chazan, but to thank the Eibishter, you got to do it yourself. You can't be yaitz with anybody. You can't be yaitz with somebody else to thank. But Al-Kabban, it's interesting. We're basically going along with the Chazan, so we should be saying things. Okay, we're saying a shortened version of what the Chazan said, but we throw in over there. I don't know it. Again, I don't know the answer why, but it's in there. That not everybody has it. There are nuschayis, it's not there, but in other nuschayis it is there. Okay, those are the requesting from the Eibishter Tachnun. I only took out a couple of things, but there are more where we ask clearly, take us out of Golos. A lot of the Tachnun is asking to get us out of out of misery, but this is asking clear cut, take us out of Golos. Not true. If we realize that our only misery is Golos, then that's the whole Tachnun is asking about Golos. There's a phrase in the Slichas. We say Tzarchei Amchi Yisroel Meruvim V'Daitem Ketzara. So there's a Chassidish taich that the reason that Tzarchei Amchi Yisroel means, the literal meaning is that the needs of the Jews are many and their minds are narrow, are limited. So there's a Chassidish taich. Why are the needs many? Because Matak Kleine Cup, we have a limited mind. If we would have a broad mind, we know we only have one need, Moshiach. Now we would be asking for one thing. That's why Tzarchei Amchi Yisroel Meruvim. So the Judas Tachnun is all talking about take us out of our problems, take our problem. We know that the only problem we really have is that we're in Golos. They would all be about Mashiach. After Shemoneh Esrei, there's a Kaddish again. And I keep reiterating the Kaddish because the Kaddish plays an unbelievable role, as we will see soon. Uvalutzi and Geulah, right? Clearly. V'nizke v'nichye v'nireh shteiv v'vachel shnei yimeisa Mashiach l'chayim haba. Towards the end. Now here again, the words L'shnei Yimeisa Mashiach does not appear in all Nuschayos, but in our Nusach it's there. Again, after the Yeh, Ashienu, V'varach Shem Kaved Leilim Yimolei Chavedes Kalaretz Amen Vav. And then when we come to the end of davening, just to note, the end of davening, there are two paragraphs that we say. We say Aleinu, and we say V'al Kein Nekab. So, brought down in Svarim that Aleinu was written by Yeshua. Why did Yeshua write Aleinu? What is Aleinu about? Aleinu is distinguishing between the Jews and the world. And when the Yidden were in the Midbar, there was no world. The Yidden went into Eretz Yisrael, suddenly they're encountering all these 7 nations and eventually 10 nations that exist over there. So, in order to get ready for that, Yeshua made a Tfilah. And we're not like them, separate us from them. We have to the hair who we are, we have to the Ge'en Yankim. Right? And then understand the difference, who we are versus them. And then there's the Al Kein Nekabeh. There's brought down in Svarim that was written by Ochen. Ochen, who was male in the Chayim of Yerichai, That's why the first letters are Al Kain Nekave is the Rosh Tevis of his name. But I don't know why he wrote it, but he was justifying the din. But what did he say? What is that? That's all about the time when the Eibishter will be revealed in the world, and ultimately you finish up with the psukim of Geula and Hashem Echad, Shmei Echad. That's the way we end the davening. To note that it is our shitta to end the davening with that. Whereas, for instance, it comes tonight. There was Sfir Seimer, correct? So many minhagim have that Sfir Seimer is done after Aleinu. Because why? Halachically, it makes sense. Every day we say Aleinu, Sfir Seimer, we only say for 49 days of the year. So therefore, Aleinu should come first. And the same thing with other type. There's a few other things that comes up that what you do before we do after Aleinu. Our minig is no, Aleinu is the end. I don't know. As it is, Aleinu has to be is put down at the end. But part of the reason is this is the way you end. You end by getting ready to go out into the world, separating from the world in a certain way, and realizing that our mission in the world is to bring God into the world. As I end, everything else has to be before that. This is the way every davening ends best. So those are just, I'm sure if somebody looks, he can find more. But these are actual requests and phrases where we're asking the Eibishter for Geula. Asking overtly, clearly. So a person davens every day, just that part of davening, he is constantly over and over focused on asking the Eibishter for Geula. But there's a lot more than that. That's the asking part. But then there's the experiencing part. And the experiencing part is much greater, because the whole experience of davening is Geula. And again, today we're only going to focus on the halachic experience of davening. The Hasidic experience of davening, which is recognizing that the whole world is the Eibishter, is l'saken elam malchashim dalad yud, is to realize that everything is God, everything is the Eibishter. That's what davening is all about. When you come to Shemoneh Esrei, it's bittul. There's no you. The Arizal says even the Kohen Gadol shouldn't be there at the time when he's there. He's not there. We're not there. We go into when we walk in, when we're supposed to be by Shemoneh Esrei, it's not. We're not there. It's all elikus. That's not a shayla. That is the ultimate davening, and that's the ultimate of Mashiach. So the real experience of Mashiach is the Chassidish davening. And that's what the whole davening, the whole experience of davening really should be. And that's the union of Geula Tfilah. I just want to mention this, the concept of Smichas Geula Tfilah without getting into too much detail. There's the idea that you have to be Semech Geula Tfilah. The Gemora tells us an interesting story. That there was an Ameir that was Zeicher to be Semech Geula Tfilah. He put Geula together next to Tfilah, and all day he was smiling. So what should we do? We do it every single day. So we should be smiling all day, right? So he was happy. It sounds like it's a little more than just. So there are Rishonim that say that it means that he was zeicher to be Semech Geula Tfilah with kavasikin. And doing kavasikin is not easy, especially when you didn't have today if you walk into the minyan of kavasikin, they have these clocks that are digital that tell you exactly the second and exactly the thing. So now, again, I'm not Chas v'Sholom going to question or get involved in that, but it is the idea of davening with sikin is a beautiful thing, and it's a great thing. And then those who do it, I know people who have done it all their life, and obviously certain times of the year it's not such a difficult thing, but there are certain times of the year that it means really getting up very, 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 very early to daven. And today it's a lot easier, but it's also really not easier, because really the davening with sikin, if you're really, really davening, a clock shouldn't be there. It should be somehow an aved. Then if you make it, you make it. And I'm sure that to this Meir, that it wasn't like he was looking. He gave himself the time, and he was zeicha. I did it, and he did it right. And that was it was smart. That's one shot. But a lot of the Rishonim don't say that. They try to explain it in practical, that there was a simcha just in the mere fact that he did it. I think, according to Chassidus, it makes a lot of sense. To be Seimach Geula Tfilah means that his Tfilah was a Geula Dike Tfilah. He was zeichet that when he stood Shemoneh Esrei, he was Gal Yisroel, he was out. He wasn't here. He was bottled to the course with the Tachlis HaBittul. That's the real smichas, the ultimate smichas Geula Tfilah. And if you're zeichet to such a smichas Geula Tfilah, you can be happy all day because the whole day looks different. Everything looks different. But that's a level that we'll leave for those who are shaykh to. And let's get down to more halachic areas that we can experience in an easier way, and not easier meaning by just thinking about it. This is also what we have to work towards, but this is what we're mechuyev to do. So we start our davening with an interesting part of davening called karbanos. I said this, but I heard this from somebody. He said that the first carbon of davening is karbanos. When a person's in a rush, the first thing he sacrifices is the karbanos. So that's not, but that's not why it's called karbanos. So really, we say karbanos every day. Karbanos is a very, very important part of the davening. What is karbanos? Karbanos, think about it. First of all, Chassidus explains that karbanos is kiruv. Going close to the Eibishter, brings you closer. And it's kiruv in a way that, yes, you are still who you are. That doesn't mean total level of bittul, but it's a kiruv. It brings you closer to the Eibishter. And what karbanos means, that you are saying the karbanos, you are somewhat accomplishing the karbanos. Now, obviously, it depends on what you're doing. If you're just saying it, if you're learning it, you know what you're saying, you concentrate on what you're saying. So, I want to mention a Sikha the Rebbe, Chelik Lamed Beis, Erev Pesach Sikha. The Rebbe says a very word in the Indian of karbanos. The Rebbe says that there are 3 levels. The Rebbe identifies 4 levels. But for the sake of our conversation tonight, we'll talk about 3 of them. And that is the level of, there's a concept in the Gemora. The Gemora tells us as follows, that Avraham Avinu asked the Eibishter, how are the Jews going to survive? Tough world out there. It's not easy to make it. So how are they going to survive? So the Eibishter told them that when they sin, they'll bring a carbon, and that'll bring kapara for them. So Avraham asked, that's good when there's a Beis HaMikdash. What do you do when there's no Beis HaMikdash? So the Eibishter answered, the Eibishter told him, say their kabbanis. Tikanti lehem, say the kabbanis. As long as they read the kabbanis, that's if they brought a carbon. Then there's a concept in the Gemara that if a person learns kabbanis, it's as if he brought a carbon. Kilu hikrif carbon. That's the Rebbe says that's a second concept. And then there's a third concept the Rebbe says called Tfilah, which is that Tfilah is connected to midim particular. When we daven Shemoneh Esrei, we are bringing a carbon. So the Rebbe says, what are these 3 different things? And he says the following: when you read karbanos and just reading what it says, and you're going through, you're doing the Seder HaKarbanos, you are accomplishing what karbanos accomplish, which is kapara. You're not actually experiencing a carbon. You're not actually living a carbon. You're getting the results of a carbon. When you learn about the karbanos, you're focused on them. Then you are experiencing as if you are doing the act of a carbon. You are getting you are experiencing the maisa of bringing a carbon. However, you don't have, the Rebbe uses the word in the Lamdish jargon, the gavra of the carbon. But you don't have the hefts of the carbon. You don't have the actual carbon, you just have you're doing your part of it. Then there's the third level. And the third level is when you daven and you're ki'ilu hikriv carbon, then not only are you getting the kapara, are you doing the mice of the carbon, you are actually experiencing a carbon in the Beis HaMikdash. It is therefore that when it comes to davening, a lot of the halachas of karbanis fall into place. When you're learning, you can learn about halachas of karbanis in the middle of the night, when it's not a time to bring karbanis. And you will get the schus of doing the maisa carbon, because you're not actually bringing a carbon in a spiritual way. However, when you daven, you are experiencing the bringing of a carbon. Then you need to do. Then it's a much higher level. Then it has to be in the time when karbanos are brought. The day card you got daven shachris, news to some people, but you got daven shachris when it's the man of Tfilah of shachris, the man of Akrav is karban shachris, and mincha is man of Akrav karban mincha, and Ma'ariv is man of Akrav the Ma'ariv when the time of the hekta chalav ma'ar. But it has to be done in the times when it's done. That's one. Also, there enters halachas of how to do it. You have to stand. Why do we stand by davening? Moshiach Mystery, because you're standing. A kohen has to stand when he brings a carbon. Then there's halachas of kavanah. Why during davening it says that you have to. Alter Rebbe brings the Shulchan Aruch that you have to focus to such a degree that there shouldn't be a machshava zara, because otherwise. He compares it to a carbon where you have machshava that's not that appropriate in the carbon. Your thoughts have to be very focused on the carbon, on the aveda that you're doing. So there's a lot that falls into place by davening in Shemoneh Esrei, which makes it actual carbon. In addition to that, when you're davening, you have to face Yerushalayim and the Beis Hamikdash. Right? Ultimately, there goes like a process. Yisroel, Yerushalayim, Beis Hamikdash, and ultimately that's where you're headed, because that's where you are. You got to sort of plant yourself in Yerushalayim, in the Beis Hamikdash. So it's an experience of Beis Hamikdash. It's an experience of Moshiach and Geulah. That's what it is. It's the experience of Beis Hamikdash. So that's the karbanos. There's another part to karbanos, which is called keteris.
What? What was that word? I didn't get it.
Which one?
The last one you said.
Keteris.
Keteris
is the part of davening which we say interestingly we say it in the beginning of davening, and then we have a minhag to say it at the end of davening before Aleinu. We say it twice. And then the fact is that there are many in the halacha is brought down a shaila. Do we say it in the after davening? There are those who only say it after davening once a week on Shabbos. Why is that? Because they don't have time the rest of the week? No. Because in the Kabbanis we make a statement. We say that if you miss out one of those samamonim, there's 11 spices that go into the keteris, and if you miss any one of those, not a good idea. So a person is chas v'sholom chayv misa. So it's brought down in the Peskim that many people were refrained from doing it, saying it in the end of davening all week long, because at that point of the davening, everybody's in a rush. They're all waiting for the train. I guess it was a train in those days too. And you had to run out from davening to get the 8:30 L or metro. And you had to get out of davening, or the 6:30, the 7:30, whatever it was. So you had to get out right away. So because you were in a rush to get out, so they were afraid that they'll miss, they won't count, they won't say the all 11, the chas v'sholom. So they don't say, on Shabbos, you have time. You can say, yeah, they brought down. It's not again. This is a halacha brought down the Peskim and Shulchan Aruch. Let's say those who disagree say, hey, that it's not so. It's not. Doesn't mean the saying of the in the Samman. It just means the actual. If somebody brings does it wrong, but actually saying is not going to be chayv misa. But what do we see from here? That it has such a powerful meaning. That there's opinions that refrain from saying it because the saying actually is an experience of it, and that if you're missing a word, you might be chayv misa. And sure, how can that be? That's what keteris is. Now, keteris, Chassidus explains, is much higher than a connection to the Eibishter than Karbanis. Because Karbanis creates a connection of two separate things. And Keteris creates a connection of one thing, makes you literally one. To note that Keteris has another value, a very, very big value. The Zohar says that Keteris has an unbelievable kayach of Shmira, and that if a person says it, it helps him through the day in many ways. And he says, if we'd only know the value of it, we would make crowns for each letter of the Keteris. That's how great it is. So I read somewhere where there was a time where there was some chas v'shalom, there was like a gzeira on children and things, and they said to say Keteris, and the Keteris had a kayach to, and as we know from the story of Moshe Rabbeinu, that the Eibusha told him there was a Maggid, take the Keteris and it'll stop the Maggid. So it has a physical, it protects physically, it definitely has a spiritual connection to the Eibusha. And perhaps that's part of the reason that we do it at the end of davening. Again, we don't do the whole kabbanis at the end of davening, we do the Keteris at the end of davening, because it leaves us with that idea to be connected to the Eibusha as we go out to the world. It's a powerful force to take with us. So again, this is a Mashiach davening. Mashiach davening, you do kabbanis, and then you do Keteris, and then you come to Eizem Mekayman. Go to Eizem Mekayman. Is every carbon is there, and in many versions of the davening in other sidurim, after each of the paragraphs of Eizem Mekayman, there's a yiratzon that it should be as if I brought this carbon, and it should be as if I brought this carbon. Each one there's a yiratzon that kilu crafty. The fact that we don't say it doesn't mean that we're not experiencing it. We just don't say it. A lot of things we don't say that others may say, but we don't say it, but doesn't mean we don't feel it. We have to feel it, not just say it. So the Eizem Mekayman is definitely a very powerful meaning of actual living through the kabbanis. And when we're done with that, we say, Sheibada Beis Hamikdash. How do we brought it? I will explain that later when we get to Shemoneh Esrei. There is one other part which is interesting. We say Baruch Shama, and after Shama we say Mizmor L'Seder. Right? So it's all it is. It's a kapitel in Tehillim. However, twice a year, 2 times, more than twice, but 2 weekdays of the year, we don't say it. Erev Kippur and Erev Pesach. Then Chalamayit. Chalamayit is not a regular weekday, but it's the Erev Pesach. We don't say Mizmor L'Seder. Why do we say Mizmor L'Seder? Because the halacha is that a Teda has chametz in it, and you need to eat it. You have to eat it for 2 days and 1 night, and you're not going to be able to. And the halacha is you can't bring a carbon that's not going to be that. L'chatchila, you're not going to be able to finish it, and you're going to end up having to burn it. So you don't bring that, so you don't say it. So listen, what those words are telling us. Now when we're saying every morning, Mizmor L'Seder, we are living the bringing of a Teda. Because otherwise, if it just, it's mentioned, but in Eizem Mekayman, we do say HaTeda Ve'el on Erev Yom Kippur and on Erev Pesach. And throughout Chalamayit. Because that's not the level of Mizmor L'Seder. Mizmor L'Seder is the level of actual Akrama. I did see that those who say Yiratzin, that you shouldn't say the Yiratzin Kila Kraft Teda on those 2 days. On those days. That I saw from the Amolagatag. I think the Mechazalazarites, you shouldn't say. I'm not sure he held at all of saying it, but I know that he definitely that said. So, but we who do say, they say everybody says the Mishnah is, but when it comes to Mizmor, so you realize, put in there an actual carbon. You're bringing the carbon, and certainly you can't do it. You can't bring the Beis Hashem. How are you saying? What are you saying? You're saying I'm giving a Mizmor to say that, and I'm thanking the Eibusher for everything. Okay, Azayah does. It's not just saying. And then we go through the build-up of davening, and we come to Shemona Esrei. Shemona Esrei, it says, Keneged Tmidim Tikkun. But before we go there, I want you to take a look on your sheet. And Shemona Esrei has in it, built in, an abundance of Moshiach and Geulah. It's all about Moshiach and Geulah if you really want to find it. But even without looking, it is clearly there. So there's a Gemara in Megillah, Daf Yud Zayin, where the Gemara says that the order of the brachas was set up by the Tanoim, and the Gemara goes through why each bracha precedes the other ones, starting from the first to the last bracha. So the Gemara says an interesting thing. Well, we're not going to go through the first because those are not the ones that are overtly Mashiach. L'cha'er, the first overt bracha that's clearly about Mashiach would be Re'einu V'Anyenu, and the bracha of Geula Yisroel, right? However, it's not. Rashi says it's not. Rashi says that that's talking about Lav Geula de Golus, she'll get him an Atzaris Ebois L'Nitom. Or you speak about Geula Pratis. The Rebbe always speaks about the two things go together. There's a Geula Pratis and a Geula Klolis. There's your own Geula, going out of your own hell and master, and then there's the Geula Klolis. So Geula Yisrael is not about Geula Klolis, Pashtus. I mean, there are those who say it is, but that's not that's not what Rashi said. So that is that's okay. So if we're gonna go there, we go to the next one, which is Mila, which is Refuah, which comes from Mila, and then there's Baruch Aleinu. That's definitely Geula. Everybody will tell you it's Geula. But the Gemara says after Baruch Aleinu goes to Kabbalah Shefer. Why? So the Gemara, if you look at the line, it starts with Kabbalah Shefer. Ma'ro le'mer kibbutz goli yislachem b'chaz hashanim, because it says va'atem Yisroel anfechem titnu v'brichem tisu la'am Yisroel ki krovoi lovoi. The day is coming close. In other words, the produce is eventually leads to Geula, and the produce of Klal Yisrael is leading to the gathering of the Yid. And from there, everything follows. Now, you would think it makes sense that everything follows Mashiach till Es Tzemach. But no, till the end of Shemona Esrei, everything follows about Mashiach. So let's see how. So Gemora goes on, that from there we go to Hashiva. Why? Because once there's Kibbutz Golias, so the Eibishter appoints judges to make the do din in those who were not righteous, and bring back the judges to Klal Yisrael. Bring a judicial system to Klal Yisrael. And not an activist judicial system, a true judicial system, a judicial system that actually focuses on law. And then from there we go to V'lam Alshinim. And that is that the Kivin Shanasa Din Min Erishon Kolu Aminim. Once there's a din, there's justice, then that destroys the minim. And from there, once the minim are destroyed, elevates the tzaddikim. And again, each thing can be the same. And where do we see Chol Karnei Rishonim Agadeya, which is a pasuk that we all know, Trei Mamna Karnei Sadik. The Karnei Sadik is a result of, comes after that. And where does that happen? Where is the Karnei Sadik elevated? In Yerushalayim. Shalu Shalaim Yerushalayim. Yishlayu Oyhavoyich. Your beloved ones are the ones that have a connection there. And from there, it says, once you go back to Yerushalayim, Bodov, that brings Mashiach. Now you think, that's it? So where does Shema Kalenu come in? No! It says, once you have, I'm sorry, the passage before. They come back to Yerushalayim, there's a Beis HaMikdash. So the Beis HaMikdash comes following that. So again, if somebody is thinking of what he's saying, he's experiencing the return of Yidden coming back to Eretz Yisrael and back to Yerushalayim, and the next, bringing Karbanos. Okay, so we got it till Ritzei, I can get it. Where do you go, Meidim? Zok the Gemara. Meidim is a carbon teda again. It says, once you have this Zevach, Zeveach, Teide, Chabad-Lubavitch, we're honored by the carbon Teide, the Davish to bring. And what follows that? Following the carbon Teide, and then you bring this Birchas Kain. So the Gemara explains, because it says by Aaron that after he finished the Kavanas, he did Birchas Kain. I want to just mention that the Birchas Kainim that we do is different opinions how we look at the Chazan doing Birchas Kain. As you know, there are various menhagim. What do we respond to the Chazan doing Birchas Kain? There are those who their minig is to just say Kain Yehi Ratzon after each bracha. There's additions to it, but that's the main point. And then there are those like us who answer Amen. What's the difference? The difference is very simple. Do we look at the Chazan saying Birchas Kainim as actually giving the bracha? It's a bracha, we'd have to say Amen, just like we do when the Kain says the bracha. If it's just a Tfilah, in other words, it's an added Tfilah in the middle of Shemoneh Esrei, then you say Kain Yiratzin, because there's no bracha that you can answer Amen to a Tfilah. So we look at it as a bracha. Now, we know that the Rebbe mentioned that the minig is to look at the Chazan or to face the Chazan. I don't know the word look at the Chazan, to face the Chazan at the time when he says Birchas Kain. Why? Because the same reason why when the Kain says Birchas Kainim, halacha is you have to face the Kain. So too, you have to face the Chazan. Now, you'd ask me if you have to face the Chazan, everybody should walk over to the front. I don't think that far it doesn't go. But it's experiencing a Birchas Kainim. This Yisroel who's davening has the Kayach of a Kain, and he's experiencing the Birchas Kainim in the Beis HaMikdash after the Hakravas Kavanas, and ultimately leads to the Sim Shalom, which is the ultimate bracha that everybody wants, and that's the ultimate Moshiach when Shalom comes into the world. That's where they come. Ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the only place where they wish to bring bracha is with the Shalom, and that's the bringing together of the spiritual and the physical worlds, which is really what Shalom is all about. So that's Shemoneh Esrei. Shemoneh Esrei's experience of Geula and of Mashiach and of Beis HaMikdash, everything that has. Now, we mentioned earlier that after Kabbanis we say Yiratzon Sheibana Beis HaMikdash, and after Shemoneh Esrei we say Yiratzon Sheibana Beis HaMikdash, right? Where does it come in? Where does it come in there? So I don't know for sure, but perhaps the Rebbe says that on Erev Pesach, when we say Korban Pesach, there is a very big digduk after we finish saying Korban Pesach. First of all, it's interesting. Korban Pesach, unlike anything else, we are not saying Mishnayos, we are not saying Gemora, we are saying something that a person observed and wrote down. That's what it is. It's the writing. I'm not even sure if it was a Yid who wrote it down and wrote the words down, what he saw when he observed the Akravas Korban Pesach. And when the Korban Pesach is brought, after we say it, so it ends up as follows. This is the very short version. It says Zeu Enyi B'Kitzur Gadol, and he adds the following phrase, the words the Alter Rebbe puts into the Siddur. V'tzarech ha'odam ha'yorei v'chored al dvar havai. A person who fears Hashem and is concerned about Hashem, likris eisei b'zmanei, stress, read it at the right time. Shatale kriyosei b'mokem akravasei, it should be as if he's bringing the carbon. V'yidag al churban habayis, he should worry about the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. V'yischanen l'fnei Hashem b'rei olam sheyivna oisei b'mheira v'meinu. So the Rebbe asks, why is this written here? And amongst other questions, it's a phenomenal sikha. That's one of the most, to me, it's like one of these real, every detail, every word there that's written is just, the Rebbe takes. But nevertheless, in that piece, the Rebbe explains that we just, there says that all the levels I discussed before, which is the three levels of what we do when we talk about Beis Hamikdash, living and experience, the ultimate experience is the Karban Pesach, where we literally tell the story of what happened and we live it through, and it's not only experiencing it it's the ultimate experience of a person with the going through the Karban Pesach. And the Rebbe says the reason is because Karban Pesach is it represents Geula, and that's what it's all about. So he says that when a person experiences this, it's at that moment that he has to realize this is not what it's all about. I'm experiencing it, but now I got to ask for the real thing. And that's what he says. That's why afterwards you got to concern yourself about the Churban and what the Yibana Beis Hamikdash should be able to actually experience it. That's when you have the ultimate realization of what it's all about. So perhaps that's why we just finished saying Karbanos. So certain can say, experienced Karbanos to some degree. Yibana Beis Hamikdash. When you come to the end of Shemoneh Esrei and you have lived through the bringing Karbanos and everything that's going on, now's the time to realize Yibana Beis Hamikdash. The Yibana Beis Hamikdash now is the greatest Yibana Beis Hamikdash. That's when you really, really. So that's what should be. Again, do we always experience that? I don't know. I struggle, but others maybe not. From there, we go through till the end of davening. So I want to mention a couple of things. There's a part of davening called the Shiur Shel Yom. Right after Asher, he says, "Why do we discuss Shiur Yom?" Shiur Shel Yom says in this farm, because in the Beis Hamikdash, when you brought the carbon, the Leviim said Shiur. So notice, we become Kahanim by Birchas Kain, and we become Leviim by the Shiur and by the Shiur Shel Yom. We do everything. We're all in one. We're going packaged, and all the powers are vested in us. Kain, Levi, Yisroel. So we have the Levi part, and we do Shiur Shel Yom. So every day we are weiter. We're not done yet. We're continuing the experience of the Avedis HaMikdash, of living in the Mikdash. That's what Shiur Shel Yom is. Unfortunately, it's put in a place, where it's, the famous joke that they say that Aleinu came to the Eibush with a complaint. That you put me at the end of a davening where everybody's rushing through and I'm done. So they said, okay, we'll put you into the Rosh Hashanah davening where everybody will sing and they'll fall and it'll be part of. It'll take a much longer time to say it, at least 3 times a year. But that's So that's where the Shiur Shel Yom is unbelievable. It should be a highlight of the davening. We're now we're doing a Shiur for the Shemoneh, for the Karbanos that we brought through Shemoneh Esrei. And then, as we mentioned, you go through till the end of davening. There's another part of davening that I want to talk about, which I mentioned, and that is the Kaddish. Kaddish, the Gemara, we know the value of Kaddish, because the Gemara tells us, anybody who answers Amen Yesh Me'Rabba with B'chol Keich, and the Rashi says, it means B'chol Keich Kavanasai, with all your intent, and that's, some people take it literally. Chalkeicha means with all your energy, and there are people who do that. And I've been to places where Amen Yesh Me'Rabba is the roof does not cave in. It's a miracle every single time. I was there, I've seen it, and it's beautiful. It's great. And, I don't know if I'm capable of doing it, but it was really, really impressive. But in Rashi says it means literally to focus and really put yourself all into it. There's halacha, we talk about the halacha of smichas Geula Tfilah. So there are levels of smicha, and I'm saying this because it has to do with Kaddish. There's levels. By Shachris, nothing exists between Geula, which is the parts from Shema and Gulas Mitzrayim and Goal Yisroel, till the end of davening. Nothing, you can't do anything there. Which leads to the question of what do we do with the Chazan saying Baruch Atah Hashem Goal Yisroel, and others have therefore taken it.
Yeah, 5.
The others have taken it to mean that the Chazan therefore drops his voice and doesn't say it. We hold not like that. You shouldn't. You should say it regular. and you just say you try to if you should finish together with the chazan or be holding behind him or ahead of him, but don't be holding there and wait for him. So that the bottom line is we don't do anything there. Really, we should, because if you notice, there's always a kaddish between each major part of davening. So after Geulah Yisroel, there should be a kaddish. The reason there's no kaddish there because of you don't want to be mafsik ben Geula Tfilah. However, at night, by Meir, we do have a kaddish. To note that the Rambam does not mention that kaddish at night, but the halacha we do, and everybody does it. Where does it come from? Comes from that there was a time that we didn't have not everybody daven Meir Shemoneh Esrei at Meir, right? Till Saras was Rishus. So because of that, they instituted they would finish with Birchas Kriyas because that's not Rishus. So Kriyas Shema Birchas Kriyas is not Rishus. Meir the Shemoneh Esrei Rishus, so they stopped and they finished with Meir with the Kaddish. What happened after? Again, I'm going according to some who explained it that way. So what happened afterwards? They kept it. Why did they keep it? So because Kaddish is Geula. And it's not a total hefsek from Geula and Tfilah. I mean, originally they wouldn't have done it. And also because by Meir it's not necessarily as important, so but still they want to keep the concept of Geula and Tfilah. It still has a concept of Geula and Tfilah. Because Kaddish is all about Geula. What's Kaddish? Especially the Chatzi Kaddish part. Chatzi Kaddish part is all about what Moshiach is. Gilui Elikus in the world. And the Aruch HaShulchan, who did not follow the Chassidic approach, writes that it's all about Geula, especially those who say V'yatzmach Mekane V'kar Mashiach, because that's what he read. You're clearly expressing Mashiach, the warning Mashiach to God. But the truth of the matter is, Yehesh Rabba is warning Mashiach to God. What's Yehesh Rabba? I want the Abish's name to be this Geula in the world. And when we say La'olam, La'ol Me'omaya Yismarach, we're saying basically we should be revealed from the highest Elamis into this world. That's what La'olam Me'omaya means. Bound into this world. Bring him here. Gilui Lakus in this world. So that's the koyach of Yesh Rabba, and everything else that we say. When we say Amen, it says in Shulchan Aruch that we have to concentrate on the words of Kaddish to know what we're saying Amen to. Because we have to, that's what we're doing. And if you notice, there are minhagim that by parts of Kaddish, we stop by Yehesh Rabba Yisbarach, right? Others go along with the Chazan till the end. And minhagim that go all the way till the end. Why? Because really, we're supposed to be saying all that. Why don't we say it? Because we listen to the Chazan and we say Amen. But what are we saying? It's all Gilui Lakus. It's all this is Mashiach. The greatest level of Mashiach is Kaddish. That's why Kaddish is such a powerful part of Tfilah, to the point that if there's a Shaila, if you can go to a place where you hear Kaddish or a place where you're going to hear Kedusha, you go to a place of Kaddish. Now, it's surprising because in Kaddish people do talk in Kedusha, we don't. So how can that be? Okay, so the Teretz is because the greater something is, the more challenging it is. So that's why it is. So because it is so great, that's why it carries with it the challenge of trying to keep focus. So I'll call upon him. Davening is a Mashiach experience. Whether it's asking for Mashiach, whether it's living with Geula, living with Beis Hamikdash, living with Hilchas Beis Abchira and Hilchas Ma'aser Karbanos, all the Beis Hamikdash living, and living meaning experiencing it, and literally living in that type of world. And those who are zeicher to do it, it's a phenomenal world. It's a whole, your day starts in the middle of the day. It's different. That's the halachic davening. And the Hasidic davening is cool. Kol kulei kaddish. You know, the whole davening is a kaddish. The whole davening is gadol v'yiskadosh Rabba. When you're saying davening, you're speaking and you're saying every word is all revealing God into the world. So that we should help. That we should obviously use the time of davening to demand from the Eibishter. And she was zeicher that the Eibishter will respond, and we will be zeicher to the Gilui and the Bias Mashiach Karev Mamash.
Amen.